Hello, this is Bladman. I've had stage 4 throat cancer for 2 days. That's why I'm covering the throat. This is why. I'm sorry. It'll be resolved in...
Right now. Sorry. I put this on because I needed some plaid, obviously. And I'm rocking the Duo. So this is my good friend, Eamon Van Dyke, and his brand, Rah Rah Wear, okay? And then his son has Snot Rocket Inc., which is just one of the coolest names in general. Fun fact, I'm pretty sure I've already said this, but like, I didn't know about snot rockets until I was in like my late 20s. And when I first saw it with a coworker, I was like, that's just gross. Why are you doing that? Like, why don't you just, I don't know, go to a sink and blow out your nose like a normal person, or get a Kleenex or whatever. And now in my 30s, in my late 30s almost, I'm like, oh yeah, that's standard operating procedure. If you're just outside, you just go like, that's just normal. And so I love that this kid who's like 5, Renee, I don't know how old you are, buddy, but yeah, 5, 6. And he's like, his dad's like, hey, what kind of company you want to make? He's like, Snot Rocket. And they did. And they made a company and they have merch and I love it. I'm sorry if this is not the best thing. I just happen to be wearing this shirt. And then I had this hat as the video hat. So just, whatever. Both of them are awesome. Both of them do a lot of stuff in the the motocross, dirt biking world, which in all fairness, I don't know much about. I have tremendous respect for. I enjoy watching when it's on, but it's not something I know much about. And Rah Rah Wear founder, Eamon, he is my mentor. He's one of my mentors. Probably, I want to say one of my, as if I have a plethora. He's my mentor. He has been for, gosh, at this point, half of my life. More than half of my life. He's always been there. He's a good person. So, support them, look them up. They're amazing. Highly suggest. Now, that out of the way. All right, that was a long little bit. But what I wanted to talk about was this interesting concept of responsibility. And I might have alluded to this in other videos, but I think it's worth repeating numerous times. And the simple concept is, just imagine any conspiracy, okay? Anyone that you fancy, okay? And it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on, whether you hate Trump or love Trump, or the Twin Towers was, Al-Qaeda bombing, or it was an inside job, or JFK was an inside job, or it was that one shooter, I'm blanking on his name right now. Whatever it is, okay? And then if you get into modern times, and less like conspiratorial things, and there's, just imagine, a criminal, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Imagine, if you will, you have a person. Let's just take a fictional person. They're running a drug empire, okay? Now, that means that they have a lot of people under them, and all those people are, in some way, shape, or form, incentivized to be there. Oftentimes, it's through monetary means. Like, hey, it's good money, I'm making great money, a little bit of work. Yeah, I gotta do bad things, but what are bad things? And you have a culture, and realize that the rest of the world does not have America's culture. So that's something that I've had to come to terms with. I've traveled a little bit. Like, I've traveled enough to know that I haven't traveled at all, if that makes sense. In that I have gone to Europe. I haven't gone to Mexico, but I have gone to Europe and different countries in Europe and loved and enjoyed it. But it was like a taste. It was like a taste of a delicious dish. And you're like, and it forever remains in your memory. But if you've had that dish more than once, then you're like, why am I having this crappy SpaghettiO when I could have this dish? I'm just referring to food here. But generally speaking, like, there is other things to be said. Like, there's pros and cons of other cultures and how they do things. I don't really want to live any other way. I like America. I like American culture. It has flaws. It could be better. Definitely. But I think that if you went back to the core of what American culture was, I think that's the best American culture. But this is not what that is. what I'm trying to say is, if you have this person who's in a position of power, right, and they're doing something that is objectively not only illegal, but it's immoral and unethical, meaning that they are harming more people than they are helping. Okay, so a good example of this, and it's not illegal, but let's just take for instance, everyone knows Coca-Cola and Pepsi products, soda products in general, but Coke and Pepsi are the two biggest people on the block. Everyone knows that those two products are bad for you. They are bad for your health. How much you understand and how much you agree with that statement, kind of for discussion. But it is understood that those two things are bad for you, right? And because they're bad for you, one would argue, well, hold on, the people pushing those things, they don't have your best interest at heart. They don't at all. And it begs the question of like, well, wait, then what, should I stop buying the product? It's like, yeah, no, probably should. And now here's the interesting thing, and this is just on a legal thing, and I went away from my fictional example because it was so much easier to talk about Coca-Cola. But like, imagine, if you will, like, you're part of that corporation. Now, on the low end, you're just a dude, and I don't mean any disrespect to janitors, but you're just a dude who's like cleaning out stuff. And you might even work in a different country, and like, it's a good job. It pays well, it pays on time. This is amazing for you, right? And I'm not necessarily speaking to you, because there is this cross-reference thing. And, maybe in the future I'll have this capacity, but basically everyone's heard of like the crazy hot scale when it comes to women. And if you haven't, definitely suggest you look it. It's online, it's funny. But the concept is, a woman, she's crazy to this level and then hot to this level. And what you want to find is a woman who's just the right amount of hot and just under the right amount of crazy, right? And too much, and it's like, yeah, she's super hot, but she's really crazy. And too little is like, well, she's not very attractive, but she's not crazy. Now, it's meant to just be silly. It's a stupid guy thing. But think of it also this way, as like a flip it. It's a evil or negative, bad versus positive scale. Good versus bad. Evil versus good. Meaning, how much is this harming people? How much am I benefiting, and how much is it benefiting other people? So a lot of people, a good example would be Walmart. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, Walmart, capitalism. Look, they're providing all this income. And they're providing all this discounted products for people. They're providing a good service, right? Hey, people will buy cheap things for cheap because they're like, look, I don't really care. It doesn't really matter. And then they'll hire a bunch of people, and they'll hire people as cheap as possible because people will work, and they figure that out. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it destroys local economies or whatever. They don't really care. They're bottom line people. And the people involved who own Walmart, like not the original owner, because he's long gone, but his ancestors, if you will, his successors, they are not necessarily good people. So here's the interesting thing. If you're working at Walmart or Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is a better example because objectively it's a bad product. Like, there are effectively poisoning and addicting people because of the sugary content of it. And it's not just sugar. Like Mexican Coke is sugar, and that's delicious, but it doesn't quite have the same addictive quality. Okay, so if you're on the bottom rung, are you complicit? Well, yeah, a little bit, but the world operates in a grayscale. So you're not really complicit, okay? And therefore you're not terribly responsible, and it's almost justifiable because it's like, oh, I get it. You need to make money. We all need to make money to survive. No problem. However, sorry, I was trying to hide the tag, and I just totally, I messed up. You know, you know what? Maybe I'll do something fun, and I'll do this. Like I'm about to have dinner. That'd be great. I love it. I'm looking forward to getting more plaid memorabilia, get a little pin or something, just so I always have to have some sort of plaid. But, okay, so there's this weird scale of like the degree of bad that the company's at. My cat, Embers, is saying hello, by the way. Degree of bad that the company's at versus your involvement, okay? So if the company's just a little bit of bad, but you're like the CEO, That's not okay. But if the country's super duper bad, company's super duper bad, and you're just cleaning the floors, also not so much of a big deal. But what's interesting is the question is whether it's a conspiratorial thing, okay, like the things I alluded to earlier, or you have people who are, in my opinion, objectively evil. So a good example, let's just take someone we all perceive as evil, which is Jeffrey Epstein, who supposedly committed suicide a couple years back. He has people around him. Here's a good question. Who were the pilots of the plane, the private plane that he was on, the Lolita Express? Who were the pilots? Now, okay, one could argue, all right, the pilot didn't know what was going on in the back, if bad things were happening in the back. He's just doing his job. And that might be true. But that's also kind of problematic, because similarly, if there's a crime going on and either you witness it and don't comment on it, or you purposely close your eyes to the crime so that you can't comment on it, both of those are really bad objectively. And depending on the level of the bad crime, your lack of awareness or involvement or complicity is that you're complicit in the crime. You just are. Like, I'm sorry, if you witness a crime and you don't report it, that's a crime in and of itself. So what we have here is so many people. Just imagine whomever you want, whatever side you're on, and you're like, this person's a bad person. If you think that Trump and Epstein were buddy-buddy, best of buds, right? How come none of Trump or Epstein's people came out and said, hey, what's up? Now, here's the interesting thing. Maybe they did, and then maybe they were suicided. I don't know. But it's something worth looking at and worth investigating in. And more than that, the real thing is the responsibility of the world is on your shoulders. And granted, that's huge. That's impossible to... Sorry, even the president of the United States, president of Russia, president of China, they don't have that level of responsibility. But here's the fun fact. The responsibility of the world is on your shoulders, right? But think about it this way. You and 8 billion or 9 billion people, I think it's 8 billion people, all divide that responsibility. Now, the unfortunate thing is a huge segment, I'd say about 60%, a little less, about 50% of the population, they are not aware enough to take responsibility. Really. They're not going to. They'll take their own personal responsibility, but beyond that, they might be incensed to vote one way or another, but not really, okay? And then, unfortunately, in my opinion, you have about 25% of the population that they're either connected to or are implicitly evil, okay? So what that effectively leaves you to is, hopefully, the few people who are watching my videos, is that really 25% of the world's population needs to carry the weight of the other 75%. Okay. Now, aside from all that, aside from the responsibility, which is the point of this video, realize this. You have power. 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. The short version, if you don't know what it is, look it up. It's funny. Basically, everyone is 7 degrees away from knowing Kevin Bacon, right? Which is a bit silly, but it's a fun joke. But everyone's also 7 degrees away from knowing Bill Gates, or Elon Musk, or Donald Trump, or whatever, right? And because of that, look at it the other way. If you knew somebody who was working for a corporation or a person who was bad, objectively bad, whether they're a cartel leader or they're part of a Fortune 500 company that's ripping people off through pharmaceuticals or poisoning people or whatever. There is a lot of people who work for that company, and they are in some way connected. Even if they're not directly connected, they might know somebody who is connected. it is imperative that we start taking back our world and start putting into check these people who think that they can kind of just do whatever they want because people like us are just like, well, it's not my job. Like, I'm not there. I'm not Bill Gates' assistant. I can't say, no, Bill, we're not going to do this because it's going to hurt 2 million people, despite us making $2 billion. I'm not that guy. And if I was that guy, I would probably be so inundated in the thing or bribed or paid off or whatever, incentivized to not do that. But there's a lot of people who are not incentivized. They're incentivized to do their job. But realize that doing your job, making money, supporting your family, all that is important. But it is secondary to when you see something that is negatively impacting our world, right? And you should always try to educate yourself and be more and more aware of your surroundings so that when you have that moment, you can do something. And I'm going to oversimplify it for you. If some person steals a bag from a lady and is running down the street and she's an old lady and she's screaming, oh my God, he stole my purse. If you're in the way of the robber, you have a few options. Option one is to tackle the person, knock him down, stop his flow, right? Or even just trip him so that he falls and hopefully drops the person and decides to continue running. If you want to be super inactive, whatever. You could just let him go and just call the cops. Or you could just pretend you don't hear anything and let it go by. Those are kind of the options you have in that scenario. And similarly, you have the same option when it comes to bad actors, people who are doing bad things for the rest of the world, where objectively what their goals and their aims are negative, are counter to the overall well-being of the world. And so this I leave you with is like, we all have this responsibility. It's all very important that we continue to survive, that our kids live a better life and have a better world. And so for that, the responsibility lays on you. And to inform and incentivize your friends and family to, when they see something, say something. And even if they don't see anything, to outwardly be aware, to know what to look for and be like, oh, hold on, I don't want that to exist. What is a better world? How can things be better? Yeah, let's handle that. It is not enough to assume that our government or assume some outside entity is going to take that responsibility for us. It is our responsibility. So I'm just going to leave you with that. I love you all. Plaidman out. Take responsibility. Conquer the day. Conquer the week. Conquer the month. Conquer your life. The more we take responsibility, the more people we incentivize and inspire to take responsibility, the better it will be for all. Okay? Love you all. Plaidman out. Bye.